Hi friends, Dr. Flavio again, and today we're going to talk about how come you have been single for so long. So this is a very, very dear topic to me. I myself was single for many years and always wondered, what was going on in my life that I wasn't meeting the right person until I did. And what's interesting about this is that the very first paper I published in the field of therapy way back in the 90s, in the 1990s, was about marital relations. And what's interesting about this is that I worked with hundreds of people, all kinds of couples and singles who were looking for a mate, helped many, many people find their mates, be happy, became a minister. I've married some of these people myself. I mean, it's a great joy, a very, very happy part of the work that we do over here. And yet, for a few years, for many years, I was single myself. So I've worked quite a bit on this issue, both personally and with many, many people that have come here. It's a very dear topic to me, and I love helping people find themselves in a relationship that suits them and that makes them complete and whole and healthy and happy. It's just a beautiful part of the work that we do. So let's talk about this for a second. How come it's not happening for you or for someone you know? Because if this is not your situation, but if it is a situation with a person that you know and that you care about, make sure that they get this video. Make sure that they watch this. And let's talk about this because there is hope. There is help for you as well. Let me tell you one idea that will change everything for you. I'm not going to tell you anything new. In fact, as I'm telling you all of this, you're going to be nodding your head saying, yeah, I get you, because I know what you mean. Exactly, you're right. I already know this, you're going to be saying. But it isn't about knowing what I'm saying. You see, we have a mind that works both at a conscious level and unconscious level. We have to work with these ideas a little bit to get to the unconscious portion of it, which is the one either keeping us single or creating the circumstances in our lives. So it isn't so much a matter of, oh, I already know this. That's not enough to change our circumstances. It's not so much about intellectually knowing a concept, it's about allowing the concept to percolate deep within the unconscious mind. So here's the idea that must reach your subconscious mind. In other words, it must become your actual reality in order for you to have the relationship of your dreams, literally. The idea is this: you must redefine your ideal and then become a vibrational match to it. You must redefine your ideal and then become a match. At the same vibrational level, you must become a match to that new ideal. So it appears that we have two ideas there, right? But it's actually one compound idea. They kind of go hand in hand. We need to redefine our ideal mate, and we must become a match to that ideal. By ideal here, I don't mean perfect. By ideal, I mean that which comes from the world of ideas. So this concept goes all the way back to ancient Greek philosophers, and they used to define two different worlds: the ideal world, or the world of ideas, or the mental world, or the non-manifest world, and the world of phenomena, the physical world. So a great conclusion that these philosophers have established and has been proven over and over to be true is that your outer world, in other words, the life you live actually in the physical world, is a match, is a projection. It corresponds exactly to those ideas that you hold within yourself. And listen, the comparison or the analogy is quite valid. If you think of a movie projector casting an image onto a screen, like when you go to the movies, the image on that screen, if you think of that as the physical world or the world you live in, your life, right? You know that that image on that screen corresponds exactly to what was recorded inside of the projector. There's no way they can be different. They don't look exactly the same, because the projector has a small little thing and it projects out onto the screen, just like the difference between the ideal world and the physical world. But in reality, there's a one-on-one correspondence between those two realms or those two worlds. So the world you live in other words, your life, is indeed a projection of these ideas that we hold within ourselves. That's the first thing that we have to keep in mind. And that is not always obvious to everybody, but we have to start there. Which means, before we go on, which means that the only way to effectively change your life, any aspect of your life, is by first changing that image or that idea that generates this particular result in your life. This applies to your body weight, this applies to your financial level of success, this applies to your relationships, to your mate or no mate. In other words, it applies to every aspect of your life. But in this case, we're talking about having that special relationship in your life. So let's go back to this. So now that we know what we mean by ideal, I have to make another parenthesis here to explain another concept. See, if I were to ask you, all right, define for me the ideal, what is the person of your dreams? What is that idea that you have of the perfect relationship for you? You're going to describe someone to me. But that isn't what's happening in your life, which means that that's not your true ideal as we define it here, as we're talking about here. And this is where it gets tricky. The ideal that is determining the outcome that you're achieving in your life is something that you're not aware of. And that's why we call it subconscious. It's below your level of conscious awareness. You're not aware of what you're actually attracting. The only way for you to become aware of what you're actually attracting, meaning what you're attracting into your life is a representation of what's in your mind, right? We just discussed that. The only way for you to know what's in there, well, there are two ways really. One is by this deep introspection, and the other is by observing very carefully what it is that you have had consistently in your life. In other words, what are the patterns? So some people tell me, wow, I keep on attracting the wrong person. There's something wrong with me. And I tell you, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not that you're attracting the wrong person. It's that you're attracting the person that corresponds to, in other words, this is who you're inviting into your life. You've got to change who you invite if you want a different kind of person to show up. Other people tell me, oh, this doesn't apply to me because you know what? I've been alone for 20 years. Clearly, it doesn't apply to me. I'm not attracting anybody, so there's no imaging there. Oh, not quite so fast. There is an imaging there. And the mate to you, your ideal mate, is a big fat void. And that's why there has been nobody there. So we have to replace that void with a real human being, you see? But there is an imaging there. And that's what you've been attracting if you've been actually alone all these years. So we have to transform this void, this huge void that's within you, into an image of the person that actually complements you. Does that make sense? So very, very, very important two things to keep in mind. And this becomes important in a little while when we talk about how to change, how to actually implement this. So far, I'm only explaining the concept to you, and you have to understand what the actual problem is so that later we can talk about how to fix it. Okay? So, one more idea. The current ideal that you have in your mind right now, remember, it's unconscious, you're not quite aware of it. The only way to become aware of it is by doing this deep introspection or by observing very carefully what the pattern has been in your life. But when you look at the pattern or through deep introspection, when you look at what you have been attracting, when you look at the images that you have inside of yourself of this mate, you ask yourself, where does that come from? And let me tell you where it comes from. It comes from nature, okay? And we get it for free. We don't have to do anything to get that image in there. Nature, perhaps because nature cares about reproduction and the survival of the species, nature kind of preloads into us, if you will, one ideal, and we call that attraction or chemistry. And even little children in the play yard, they look at a boy, they look at a girl, and they say, oh, he's so pretty, she's so pretty, he's so attractive, so handsome. In other words, attraction happens very early on in life. And if you were to ask any one of us, why is it that that person is actually attractive to you? We can come up with all kinds of explanations, but the truth is we don't know. We just like the way the person looks or smells, or in other words, we just like it, and we call that chemistry. We just like that, we call that attraction, right? So it's a natural thing. It's built into us. Nature gives you that for free. You don't have to do anything to develop the ability to feel attraction. It's built into us. Early on in our lives, we exercise this nature gift, this natural gift to feel attraction, and every now and then we feel attracted to somebody who obviously feels attracted to us. So we have something called success, a match. You say, I feel attracted to this person feels attracted to me. We haven't done anything to earn that attraction, it just happened naturally, but there's a matching there, and we develop some form of interaction, and when that happens, we learn a lesson. In other words, we put a stamp inside of our minds, metaphorically speaking. We say, okay, this works, this methodology works. In other words, attraction is a great way to have the pleasure of an awesome interaction. Right? Look at the flip side of that coin. Suppose there is attraction, suppose there is correspondence, this person also feels attracted to you, but for whatever circumstances, the relationship becomes impossible. That person develops the idea early on in their lives that attraction leads to a void. You see, these are the people, in other words, when a person comes to the office and they tell me, oh, I've been alone for 20 years, I haven't found anybody, I don't date anybody, nobody asks me out, I ask them, okay, tell me about him or her, whatever the case is, the very first person you found attracted to. And they start crying, they tell me, well, how did you know? And I say, well, because that void, it comes from this first experience where we learn that attraction leads to a big fat zero. In other words, nothing happens once we feel attracted. So the unconscious is learning these lessons and is developing a rule that we're going to follow forever until we change the rule. And this is what we call changing the rule, means redefining the ideal. So what happens with the person that says, I'm always attracting the wrong thing, they might be an adult, they might be older, they might be middle-aged, but they're still looking for mates based on the same criterion that worked for them when they were a teenager or when they were in preschool, perhaps. In other words, they're still looking for attraction as the measure of the possibility of a relationship. So the very same thing that worked really well when you were in middle school no longer works. Have you noticed? And that's why the person says, I keep on attracting the wrong thing. The way in which we're making the choice is no longer valid, it no longer works. And you have to ask yourself, why not? I didn't make up the rules. Why not? How come I cannot continue living the same way I did? Sometimes a person will ask me that question here at the office and they say, well, you walked in here today for your session and I didn't see you crawling on the floor. What's wrong with crawling? When you were a baby, like me, you probably crawled. Why are you not crawling today? They think I'm joking or kidding or making but the point is that there's a certain need to evolve, change, grow, and adapt. And life takes care of pushing us in this direction that we call evolution and growth. So we cannot continue crawling today. We have to adapt and develop other means of locomotion, right? So we cannot, in other words, if we kept receiving mates into our lives based on this free concept of attraction throughout our lives, we would be, a part of us wouldn't grow up. So then what nature does is, nature says, okay, I gave you a sample of how good a relationship could be when you were 12, but now that you're 55, if you really want a mate, we're going to have to grow up a little bit. And this growing up means redefining the ideal. We're going to redefine the ideal. So think about this idea of redefining the ideal. Rather than looking at attraction, think of the way the person makes you feel, but not just like physically, right? Like emotionally. Think of the way the person speaks, the way the person thinks, and you can see how there's a gradient of possibilities here. You can choose mates, or you can project into the world a call for a mate that is based on different criteria. The highest one of which is the soul that corresponds to you. Hence the term soul mate that people get all excited about, soul mate. So if you're looking for your soul mate, but not based on the soul, instead you're looking for the soul mate based on the appearance of the physical body, have you noticed? It's like me looking for a particular, I'm looking for a 4-door car at a parking lot, but I looking the department that says white cars. There might be a white car that happens to have 4 doors, but you see, I'm looking by a different criteria. I'm doing a search, white cars. One with 4 doors may pop up, but it would be a lot more fruitful if I searched according to number of doors. I'm looking for 4-door cars. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm looking based on one criteria, the chances that another criteria might be satisfied are slim. That's, in other words, if you have been alone, that's what I'm talking about. You say, yeah, but a friend of mine did that and it worked for her. Okay, she's happily married, that's fine. We're not talking about her. We're talking about the situation where it hasn't worked. Okay, let's focus on this case. So we have to redefine the ideal and become a match to it. So we have to talk a little bit more and think about this. What is actually important for you? Not as you are today, but as you see yourself going with your life. And this is what we mean by redefining the ideal. We're going to be talking more about that. But now let's talk about the second part of this idea. Now that you redefined your ideal, you must become a match to that ideal. In other words, now that you can see in your mind's eye what the perfect person to you would look like based on their heart, based on their ideals in life, based on their thoughts, right? Now that you can see that new ideal, ask yourself this question: would that person marry me or go out with me or ask me out? Or would they accept an invitation from me to go out with them? And invariably, with the hundreds of people I worked with in the past who come here to find a mate, invariably when we get to that point in the process, most of them cry, actually, say, no way. They see that person as something that is beyond their reach or beyond their grasp. And I tell them, that's exactly right. This is what we mean by we have to grow up. So tell me, why do you think this person wouldn't be a match to you? They say, wow, I see them as being so organized and I'm such a mess. I say, okay, let's work on your organizational skills. Or they tell me, wow, that person is financially successful, I'm not. I say, okay, let's work on your financial success now. You see, and it doesn't take long because it's all a matter of awareness. Once the person becomes aware of what they need to do and develop in order to become a match to their own ideal, they quickly become that match. In their mind, it's all in your mind, you see? And then we naturally exude this confidence that actually attracts, almost like a radar, like an antenna type of thing, attracts the right person into your life. And that person may literally bump into you somewhere. It doesn't take that long at all. It's a mental adjustment. That's all it takes. We have to redefine the ideal and we must become a match to that ideal. Now, before I tell you how to make these changes that we just described, I have to tell you one more thing, because this question always comes up. And we've discovered over the years that if the mind has a question, you know, the mind really doesn't cooperate with us going forward. We have to address the question so that we can go forward. Otherwise, we kind of get, you know, we get hung up on this question over here and we don't move forward over there. So we have to address the question. And that's why students in class always tell me, oh my gosh, as soon as this question came up, you kind of answered it. You know, are you reading my mind? And I tell them, no, it's not that. It's that we've been doing this for a while. And believe it or not, the questions that arise are similar among us all because we're humans, right? So we kind of have the same types of questions along this path. And here's the question. People sometimes ask me, how come this adaptation or this evolution of the criteria through which I choose my mate, or this redefinition of my ideal, how come that hasn't happened to me? How come I keep looking in the wrong places? How come I keep looking for something that I really don't want at the end of the day? And there are two answers to that. One has to do with an overall lack of growth, an overall lack of maturity, because some of us focus too much of our energy into growing one aspect of our lives, but not others. And sometimes one area of our lives becomes deficient in development and growth. And the analogy that I give in class is, imagine you go to a gym and you lift weights only with your right arm, while the left arm may not grow as much. There will be an imbalance there. So perhaps a person only focused on their career and they may be a brilliant professional, as an example, but in this example that I just made up, they never bothered to develop themselves as a potential mate, and believe it or not, they will be deficient in that area because it's a matter of developing yourself. So this is one example, right? This is one possibility. We simply haven't developed ourselves enough, and therefore we keep on functioning based on criteria of choice that belong to a much earlier age. We're still looking at the attraction thing as the criteria for choice. And the second reason why we don't move on and choose more in a more evolved fashion is because, and this may get a little metaphysical for some of you, but it's because we don't trust the universe. And this, I have found, is the biggest. 99% of the instances of the folks I work with here have to do with this. They don't trust the universe. They actually think that the universe is going to play a dirty trick on them. In other words, okay, fine, I'm going to redefine my ideal. I'm going to basically think of this soul that corresponds to me, and I'm going to choose this person based on these feelings and all these ideals, right? But that person will be ugly to me, or they won't be good intimately, or I won't have any chemistry with them. So I just want to be sure, and therefore I must choose by virtue of the sexuality aspect and hope for the rest. And I tell them, why would the universe do this to you? How come you actually believe that the right person for you would be detestable to you? Think about what this means. And this is what I mean by unconscious. You may not have thought of this, but the fear is in there. What if I meet this perfect person and he or she happens to be ugly to me? What if I just don't have any chemistry with them? And I tell you, why would that happen? The right person for you happens to be very attractive to you, and vice versa. Trust the universe, because when something is right, it's right at every level. You need to know this, and we need to include this concept in your definition of ideals. What is right for you is right at every level. This person matches and complements you on many different levels. So trust me, the chemistry will be there if it's the right person for you. Trust the universe. Okay? Now we need to talk about how to redefine your ideal and how to become a vibrational match to this new ideal. The question now is how. This involves a couple of exercises. This involves a few more explanations and then a few exercises. And I just noticed that this video is getting way too long. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you want to learn how to redefine your ideal, I'm going to ask you to click on the Learn More button. A page is going to show up asking you for your email address. You put your email address there, make sure you spell it, get the right email address there, because I'm going to send you an email with a link to the second part of this video, which contains the explanations and the exercises that will help you redefine your ideal and become a match to that ideal, which is how you will be able to have the relationship of your dreams. All right? So click on the Learn More button, put your email address, go to your inbox, open up the email from us, and if you don't get the email, check on your spam box or whatever. Make sure that you get the email from me. Click on the link. This other video is going to show up, and again, go through the video, go through the explanations and the exercises, and if you have any question whatsoever, please let me know. We're here to serve and to help. Thank you.